Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into a new edition of the Batter Up podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood here on the Sports Insanity Network. You got the trio, you got Danny Boy Reginald, you got the old ops guy, and you got me, Mike Rifke. I hope everyone is doing well on this Memorial Day weekend. Gentlemen, how are you?
Awake. It's sunny and I'm awake. There you go. That's the best I got
You,
today.
you gonna work on that tan later?
Yeah, I am a white boy.
If you are a true wrestling fan, you would understand that I would compare you to Sheamus at the moment, but I'm not sure if you get
I
the.
don't have the red hair though, and I really don't have an Irish accent.
Which I'm happy you understood it. I'll give you that. Dan, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Just still trying to wake up.
Still trying to. It's
W-
Sunday.
Wish I had some coffee, you know?
Actually, I don't. I'm not a coffee drinker.
See, I'm not either, but there are times where I'm like, no, I could definitely use it. This is
Yeah.
one of those times because it's tough. It's a tough turnaround when you're coming from night side of work to early morning. Well, this is not early morning, but you know what I mean, like
Morning. Yeah.
talking baseball. But I'm happy to be here always because we get to talk some baseball.
Always. 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 All right. We got a grand show. We're going to talk a lot about the series that are upcoming Memorial Day, which usually means it's the first time you look at the standings. We will talk some of the big series coming up for the week. I do want to start with some that has caught the eye of people, and it has to do with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, let's be real honest about the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have walked the plank this season already. Um, that there's been some chatter about a Paul Skeens potential trade. Maybe not close, but people start chiming in. He had a response. This is from ESPN. Paul Skeens didn't hear Pittsburgh Pirates general manager Ben Cherington say that trading the reigning National League Rookie of the Year to give the last place club an influx of much needed position player talent is, quote, not at all part of the conversation. When someone relayed Cherington's comments to him, the 22-year-old ace laughed. Quote, it doesn't affect anything, Skeens told the AP late Friday night after the Pirates rallied for a 6-5, 10-inning win over the Brewers. Anybody can play GM. If Skeens, who celebrated his first anniversary in the majors 2 weeks ago, has learned anything during his rise to stardom over the past 3 years, it's that noise is not the same as news. Skeens said, quote, there's no substance to just all that talk that you hear on social media and news outlets and stuff like that. It's one of the many reasons he tries to block it out. Okay. This feels like one of those trades you make in MLB The Show where you just give up the whole world for this one guy. And then you just got to fill out the roster with different free agents. But Mark, I guess I'll start with you. With the would the Pirates actually entertain a Paul Skeens deal? And if you were Ben Cherington, would you consider it? Or is this one of your, yeah, that's not going to happen?
If we were talking Paul Skeens 2 years later, maybe I could entertain a thought. This is nothing more than just to get yourself a little bit more attention on the news. There is no way, even if it was the Colorado Rockies, especially with arbitration years and all that ahead of them, there's no rush to trade Paul Skeens unless you find a team. Now they're only, I have to rule out the Yankees because of what they did acquiring Juan Soto. They gave up so much. I really don't know what's left in the farm system, so I can't comment. If you look at the Mets have everybody in the world that you could want, but I'm not ready to give up all of those for one pitcher, mind you, even if it's Paul Skeens. That's the Mets' future. So any team that comes up with any idea on how to do it and pulls it off, hats off to them, but it's not going to be a contending team.
Why are we talking about Paul Skeens being traded? Possibly, like,
Because the general manager brought it up. Now it could have been
That's it.
tongue in cheek,
but that's
but
my
it
point.
has made its round.
But my that's my point. Like, what are we doing? No, he's the franchise. Build around the franchise, and if you can't, then you, along with that manager that was already gone, need to go. Like, if you can't do your job to build a ball club, then you need to go. And if ownership can't realize that either, then they probably need to go too. But I don't know. Like that. This is dumb. This is really dumb. I don't know why you even entertained the thought. And now teams are going to be all over Paul Skeens. And look, it may not happen in the immediate future, but it could happen in an off season. It could happen next season when teams have a better sense of what they can give up. Like, this is going to be now a topic of conversation for a while. And you do it because you're so stupid thinking that, you can sort of get away with, oh, we're just chit-chatting about possibly trading one of our best franchise players in a while.
But here's the other side to this. Every year that he goes unside, now I don't know if when they can start buying out arbitration years. Every year that he goes unsigned, and he's another year closer to free agency, all I think of is Garrett Cole,
Yeah.
another guy who the Pittsburgh Pirates took number one overall and then traded to the Houston Astros because they couldn't get a deal done.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Eric Cole, who was great for Pittsburgh, by the way.
Garrett Cole is awesome. Garrett Cole was awesome for Pittsburgh. He was awesome for Houston. He's been awesome for the New York Yankees. Shout out Garrett Cole. But you can't be put in that same position. And if you're the Pirates, and this is where, to your point, Dan, they've had the number, they've been picking at the top of the draft, it feels like every year, whether it's 1, 2, 5, whatever. Who they haven't hit on anybody position player wise. They've hit on Paul Skeens. Okay, that's great. They got a decent rotation, but they don't have the position players to look as a contender. The article goes on to say there could be a time when Skeens moves on, either by Pittsburgh's choice or his own. That time, at least, the Skeens is not coming soon. Pittsburgh's last in the major leagues in runs with 157. Obviously, this article is not from today, it's from a couple of days ago, and has no high-profile position player prospect ready to walk into the home clubhouse at PNC Park as a big leaguer anytime soon. Skeens goes on to say Ben's job, quote, Ben's job is to create a winning team and a winning organization. So what it looks like to him is up to him. So Skeens doesn't expect to be dealt, but I did think it'd be a fun topic of conversation if the Pittsburgh Pirates did look into this a little bit, just based on where they are.
And again, it would be an absolute ridiculous ask, which every team even entertains to want to know what it would cost. It would be too high. It's not going to happen. At least right now.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens if there's anything to this. I just
Any
think it's
validity?
tongue in cheek, but I would not expect anything on Paul Skeens this offseason at the trade deadline. It ain't happening.
It shouldn't exist. Fix your lineup. Fix everything else that's wrong.
Spend money, Pittsburgh.
Like actually do something. Get a manager that actually is good. You know,
Maybe Aaron Rodgers can manage the Pirates while he's waiting to play quarterback for the Steelers.
Funny. Look like he actually knows anything. He can't even
He
throw.
knows darkness retreats.
Yeah.
Next up, we go to Bill Murphy's favorite team, the Boston Red Sox, made some headlines this week. They did just put Alex Bregman on the injured list.
But how horrible is that? That is a tough one.
It's a tough one. They did recall top prospect Marcelo Mayer. He'll should be in the lineup today, I believe. Or he was in,
Please hit a home
the
run.
lineup for game 2 yesterday. I don't know. I'd have to look. But that's not why we're talking Red Sox. Earlier this week, they had some pitching concerns. Garrett Crochet pitched against the New York Mets, was pulled after 85 pitches, kind of sounded off to the media. And then Liam Hendricks. You will all know him, former Oakland A's closer, was brought into a game, and he sounded off to the media about being left in. He's not getting a whole lot of work. Mar, I'll go with you. Start with you on this one. Do you think these are comments by pitchers shouldn't have been said, and they should have just said something to outscore behind the scenes, or is this something to worry about if you're a Red Sox fan?
I think you can look at it both ways. I mean, sometimes it's good to call out people in front of the media to say, "Hey, look, you want to screw around, whatever you want to complain, fine. I'm going to complain back at you." And there's nothing worse than a manager complaining about players. Players complaining about a manager, we hear all the time. But when a manager complains about a player, it's a problem. Garrett Crochet, I mean, besides his, I mean, should not be at 4-3, especially with he's pitching like I think it's a 170 ERA or close to it. 198, I apologize. Getting pulled after 85 pitches, I didn't understand that either. He was pitching fine. Hendricks being left in and being used. This is what happens in baseball. You know,
Well, to go off the Hendricks thing just for a second, sorry to cut you off.
sure. No,
He basically said, look, if you want me to be consistent and consistently good, I need more work. You can't just throw me in the random time at random times.
and obviously no pitcher wants to be out multiple days except for, mind you, starters, because like you said, timing becomes a factor and the main thing, consistency. If problems like this still arise, and Boston, is second in the AL East, so there's no urgency to trade any of these guys that are causing problems. However, if Boston happens to go, losing Bregman is big, and it's from what I have read last night, they're comparing it to the Houston Astro injury where he missed about 3 months. So this is going to be a long stint on the IL for Bregman. This isn't going to be your normal 10, 15-day turnaround. So I think Boston has a lot of stress and a lot of venting it needed to do, especially after the thing with Rafi Devers. This is just the next problem. They just got to move past it and move on.
And to that point, before I let Dan go, their upcoming schedule's not pretty. They play the Brewers this week before a trip to Atlanta, who we're about to talk about, because somebody came back and did some stuff. But Dan, I'll give you the floor on the Red Sox.
It's a rite of passage when your manager's calling out the entire squad, being like, "We need to be better" and stuff. And it's the truth. They do need to be better. I just don't know what's there's no great way to go about it though. Like how do you address, don't address it to the media, I guess. Talk
Bear
to them.
behind closed doors.
Like you got to talk to your players and stuff. I think that's the best way to go about it. They did have a nice win in game one of the doubleheader yesterday. It was a very nice win. They went to extras. Um, really, the only player that's played well is Devers over the last like week or so. He's on a nice stretch here, but everyone else seems kind of iffy a little bit, and that would frustrate me. If I'm a Red Sox fan, that would definitely frustrate me. And the schedule doesn't get any easier as the summer goes on. So they need to figure it out. They really do need to figure things out. And losing Bregman's tough because he was actually a good force in the lineup, and now you lose that force. So now all the weight is shifting. And who's going to pick up the slack? I just don't know if the Red Sox have players right now that can.
Well, they're going to need players who can. I think that list starts with Jared Duran, who was a all-star. I think he came to the All-Star Game MVP last year too. Look, I think the Crochet thing lines up with two things. One, remember how much the Red Sox gave up for him, but two, they signed him to an extension. So they were trying to protect their investment.
Yeah.
And
So,
remember how
so
the White Sox babied him last year.
right.
I think that's part of this too.
Yeah, I mean, but Cora needs to trust because Crochet's been good. So
Oh,
Cora needs
Crochet's
to
been great.
trust.
Yeah.
He needs to trust that he can go more than 5 innings of ball, even if it means he's approaching 100 pitches. Like let him go a little bit more. Like it's okay. And Crochet was right. Like the bullpen was massively spent. And it's just not fair to put all that on a depleted bullpen that, look, after a while, when you constantly use it, and we've seen this all the time with all these managers that work by the numbers, that overuse of the bullpen can be taxing and it could affect them long term.
Especially when you're in a stretch where you may not have days off. You may need to push a starter. I need you to go that extra inning. I need you to get to
And
100 pitches,
and
105 pitches.
to Crochet's credit, he was doing that
Yeah.
until Core decided to be, you know, Davy Johnson like when the way he treated Strasburg.
Right.
Which makes you feel like that decision didn't come from the manager, it came from upstairs. Yeah. I have a feel for the game, nerds.
Yeah. I don't know a lot.
I mean,
it's
I-
tough to watch.
it is. Throughout my time in baseball and your guys, we used to see complete games all the time.
Mhm.
Now they used to be dime a dozen. Now you're lucky to see one if you find a needle in a haystack.
It's what I was having this conversation the other day with my parents. I was like, think about it. We are never going to see another 300 game winner.
Probably not.
Unless Verlander or Kershaw or Scherzer get there, which isn't probably happening. We'll never see another 300 game winner. Because of what you just said, Mark, it's these guys don't go deep into games because everyone's on a pitch count or everyone's on an innings count. In the next probably 5 years, you're going to see a game where for every inning there is a different pitcher in. And
that's scary to think about.
And starting pitching will be defunct.
Yeah, but doesn't that go against what the commissioner of baseball wants? Doesn't he want more starting pitching to be a big factor?
I'm sure he does, but you know what? I I think teams, and this is another thing we've talked about. Teams do not care about guys who can locate it. They just care about the velocity. And if you throw hard, you're gonna be in the big leagues, and they're gonna say, blow that 100 mile per hour fastball by whoever.
All right, but you have to locate because if you don't know how to properly locate, it backfires on you. So that's definitely crazy to think about.
One pitcher in mind that we will never see the likes of again is a Greg Maddux. There was nobody better when it came to location than Greg Maddux.
And
He
he
could
didn't
paint
even
the
need the
black all
100
day
miles
long.
per hour.
He
Mhm.
didn't need to.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts on starting pitching. You can comment below, guys.
Mhm.
But Mark, great segue with Greg Maddux. Is let's talk about those Atlanta Braves. Because, well, now they're healthy.
Mhm.
They got Spencer Strider back earlier this week from a hamstring. And they got that Ronald Acuna guy back. And all he's done in his first 2 games back is homer both of them. And now the
Raking.
Braves
Yeah.
look like a force.
Can you imagine they still had Max Fried? Oh my.
It,
I don't
it would
want
be
to
a whole
imagine it,
different
Dan. I
story.
lived it.
I mean, you would be talking a whole different story now. I mean, what mind you, from the aspect of the Braves being garbage without Acuna, yeah, that works for Mike and I. But part of me is happy to see that Acuna is healthy because he's good for baseball.
Yes.
He makes the game exciting, and let's face it, because of the way the All-Star game is, he's going to be a starter in the All-Star game, even though he hasn't played as much. He's just one of those players that bring people to the ballpark and bring people to watch on TV. Every team has a guy, well, almost every team has a guy like that.
Let me ask you this because you called him a top player.
Yes,
We know Otani and Judge are 1, 2, whatever order. Where would you put Acuna in there? Is he 3? Is he
I would, in the top 10, I would put him right now at 6 because of the injury. Yes, he's homered in back-to-back games since he's been back. But let's see where he is after 20 games. But right now, I still have him in my top 10, just like I would have just like I have Trout in my top 10, even though the guy hasn't been healthy in 5 years.
that? That's a valid point. Dan,
Of course, Ronald Acuna comes back and absolutely rakes the ball. Like what else do you expect? And it's a shame that we can't see this guy play for at least 150 games a year. Because can you imagine if we get a full slate of Ronald Acuna? Man, we're talking about definite Hall of Famer. We're talking about a Braves team that isn't constantly in the mix of a playoffs. They are definitely playoffs. Uh, and probably goes further than where they have gone over the last couple of years. So, I mean, it's a massive difference that he makes in that lineup. And the Braves are very fortunate that, you know, in a very tough national league, that they're still very much in the mix of everything. And now they have everybody healthy and running.
I want to say this about Ronald Acuna because we just labeled him before talking with Judge and Otani. Like he belongs in that conversation.
And he should, yeah.
He's more dynamic than those other two guys, just based on the speed alone.
Mhm.
Which, by
Fair
the way,
enough.
I would love to see a stolen base contest between him and Ellie De La Cruz. I think it'd be epic.
See, that's something I've always wanted to see added to the World Series, not World Series, All-Star game.
The stolen bases contest.
You know
Yeah,
what?
they
Make make it like they do the NBA All-Star game Saturday night with a bunch of different competitions and just headline it with the home run derby.
yeah,
I'm
I
down
mean,
with that.
Japan does a bunt contest with like a target for points where the ball has to land. And to me, it's just something different and cool.
I thought you said Japan has a butt contest, and I was gonna go. That's interesting.
That's more for STS. We're not talking about that right now.
Listen, I tell you what I hear.
Uh,
But look, but Mark, to your point before though, like Acuna should be at the All-Star game. He's gonna be because popularity. And we want to
that's
see the best. And it's great to see him healthy. And to Dan's point, the Braves are not were not buried in his absence. They were able to overcome that dreadful start that they had. So now it's on in the National.
like Donkey Kong.
It's on. It's on like
Like
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
So good to have Ronald Acuna back. Spencer Strider. I'll give you this. It's decent to have you back after what you said about the Met fans a couple years ago. So, speaking of National League East teams, those Philadelphia Phillies are the hottest team in baseball. After last night, they've won 9 in a row.
Yeah.
Albeit they've played the A's and the Rockies this week, but 9 in a row is 9 in a row. They've taken over first place in the National League East by 3 games over the Mets. The other team that's been rolling in the American League up until last night were the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They had won 7 in a row, their longest winning streak in a decade. So, Mark, take your pick. You want to talk Angels? You want to talk Phillies?
Well, I'm going to talk the one I know more about, and that's going to be the Phillies. So I'll leave the A's to you guys. You know, I like watching good baseball, and I recognize good baseball. Mike, put it lightly that, they played Colorado and Oakland, but we've seen the Yankees and the Mets, have problems with weaker teams. So, I don't care that they beat those guys up. 9 wins, like Mike
I
said,
just
is
wanted to
9
make it
wins.
make that
Yeah,
tongue in cheek. Yeah.
yeah. The players that are doing it, you got to look at Trey Turner over the last few weeks. He's got his average up to over 304. His stolen bases have almost doubled over the last 3 weeks. Bryson Scott is on a tear lately, but I look at the one guy in this lineup that they all rely on, and being in Bryce Harper. His numbers are fine, but they're not all-star numbers to me. 273, that's fine. It just seems different out there on the field. I don't know what exactly it is, but and I can be wrong too, but I see something wrong. The loss of Aaron Nola for this team is huge, but Zach Wheeler is definitely making up, and Jesus Luzardo is definitely making up for the loss of Nola, which at the time of when he went on the disabled list, he had a 6.16 ERA and he was 1-7. So there was definitely something wrong with Nola after last year. The Phillies will get that loss, and it will come against a more reliable team. But they're going to ride this wave for a while, and it's not up for them to keep riding it. It's for the Mets to keep keeping up along with them and ride that pipeline along. The Mets cannot afford to be in a month less than 5 games out.
The other guy who's been red hot for the Phillies, Kyle Schwarber.
Sorry, I should have mentioned him. Yes.
No, you didn't have
Yeah.
to. I did. And Dan, the Angels, longest winning streak in a decade, and they don't have Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani.
And it included a win against the Dodgers. How about a series?
They
win
swept
over-
the Dodgers.
Right? Can you believe that? Crazy, man. Blowing the Dodgers out. Oh, this is good. That was good. Tremendous. That was tremendous. The Angels have been playing good ball, good pitching. Also capped off. Taylor Ward had a 10-game hit streak, I believe, and sensational, but mostly because the Angels good pitching and they're scoring runs, and that's been big. It's been huge for them. So
If things have gone so well for the Angels, they're now only a game under 500.
yeah,
And I believe Taylor Ward tied Darren Erstad for extra base hits in consecutive games.
yeah.
Need to check to see if he got one last. But the Angels, listen, I'm not going to go to the division yet. 2 games out in the wild card.
Yeah, that's huge for them.
Them, the Rays, and the Blue Jays are all 2 games out.
Look, this is a very weak American League, Mike. Like it's weak. The Yankees even lost to the Rockies. Like that's how weak the American League is. It's so bad. But yeah, man, like the Angels are right on the cusp. Like, keep playing good ball. It sucks that Trout's not there. That's my big thing. Like,
Get healthy, Mike Trout. Get healthy.
I guess I can't. I mean, if they're playing this well without him against good teams, these are not gimmies. These are against good teams.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're playing this well without him, imagine with him healthy and all that. Yeah. But good stuff from the Anaheim Angels. Good stuff to see that. I'm glad that they're actually playing good ball because it's been a long time since we actually saw them play some good baseball. And we let's throw a wrench to the American League teams like the Yankees. Like let's challenge them a little bit more.
Yeah. Shout out Ron Washington.
And one thing that can play for them,
too.
one thing that can happen to them, let's say they make a run and they make the wild card, and then you get a healthy Mike Trout back.
Mm-hmm.
So
here's the insane thing. If they were to get into the playoffs, it would only be Mike Trout's second trip to the playoffs.
Isn't that wild?
That is insane to me.
that is something I did not know. That you only 2?
This would be the set. They never made it
Wow.
with Ohtani.
Wow. Yeah. Did not realize
All those years with Ohtani never made it.
get it to the playoffs. That's true. That's sad at the same time also.
They need Joseph Gordon-Levitt to remake Angels in the outfield. That's what they really need.
But as long as we can get the same guy who had to cater the kids around and he gets more crap spilled on him. I'm sorry. That was one of my favorite things.
Oh. All right. On to the next. So, a couple of weeks ago, we started this little fantasy game. Created our own little fantasy rotations. I did put it out on socials in a poll. The winner of the poll was the old guy. So, Mark, what you get for winning that poll,
A new car. A new car. A new car.
I filled it up with gas.
You gonna drive it over here?
No,
I didn't
different
think
kind of gas.
so.
You get to pick the next position filled on our rosters.
Okay, just to go over which one we've done pitching.
That's all we've done is starting pitch.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
Yep.
The old guy has memory lapses. I don't want to pick one. Let's go my position. Let's go catcher.
Okay. So we are going to go 3 catchers deep.
Oh.
Let me just make that note that we're going catchers.
And reminder,
And
these are all-time catchers, right?
This will be all time.
And this is not as easy as, no position is as easy as it sounds as we are using
Yeah, we're going to
the
leave
entire
someone off.
MLB. But still, when you're limited to 3 and you think how many players per
You
position.
want to go a little bit deeper? I could go.
No. 3 sounds fine.
Fine.
It's just when you think of the amount of players, you're gonna name your 3, and then one guy's gonna name one. I should have named that one. That's all. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we're gonna let Dan go first.
All right.
Because if I go first, I'm gonna take everybody's picks.
Okay. First catcher that I'm choosing. I'm gonna go with my Puerto Rican bow, Mr. Pudge Rodriguez.
Oh, okay.
One of the best defensive catchers to ever play the game.
Loved him.
And by the way, the heart and soul of that 03 Marlins team.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So Pudge is off the board. Mark, I will give you the second pick.
Well, the guy who I loved from day one when he was drafted by the Dodgers to the day he ended his career as a New York Met, Mike Piazza.
Most home runs all time by a catcher.
See, I played catcher when I was little because of Mike Piazza.
I loved Mike Piazza. I could not play catcher.
He was my favorite second to David Wright, non-Yankee.
Yeah. Played catcher for 22 years. So
I couldn't do it. But every time I'd get into that squat, my legs would start to crack. No, not for me. All right. I'm going to go Johnny Bench.
Okay.
The Big Red Machine.
All-time home runs.
So, Big Red Machine, part of that 1970 Red scene.
Yeah. So I'll take Johnny Bench. All right, Dan, it is you. Back to you.
I'm gonna go bias here. I'm gonna go Yogi Berra.
Okay.
Yogi, the man who made comments in baseball that still stand true today, even though they don't make sense.
It's true.
It's true, but arguably one of the greatest catchers to ever step foot on a diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for my number 2, the guy got a rule named after him that should have been named after me. It should be the Halpern rule, not the Buster Posey rule. Buster Posey gets hit in an MLB game illegally. I got hit every day illegally. No, Buster Posey could do it with the bat, hold a good game, had great vision, great snapshot throws to first and third. It definitely deserves a spot on my list.
And change the dynamic of the Giants. So, wow. All right. So, just to reiterate, Mark's first 2 are Mike Piazza and Buster Posey. Dan went Pudge Rodriguez and Yogi Berra. I'm going to take. I've got Johnny Bench, and I'm going to take Dan's other Puerto Rican catcher. Give me Yadi Molina. the greatest defensive catcher of all time, in my opinion. I'd like to see a throw off between him and Pudge. That would be pretty sweet too. So I think about the amount of years Yachty did, and he played
Yeah.
every day. All right, Dan, your third and final catcher.
This is a tough one. Do I go old time or do I go a little more recent? Screw it. I'm gonna go Gary Carter,
Oh, the kid.
the kid.
By the way, his number should be retired by the New York Mets.
Mhm.
Been saying that for decades. For
I
a
don't know
decade.
why they still haven't done it yet. Years after his death.
No idea.
No idea.
It's in the Hall of Fame.
Should be there.
Yeah,
Ugh.
but it's a kid himself. I mean, all of his years with the Expos and the fact that he turned around that Mets squad to get them to a World Series champion.
He became that player that helped mold Doc Gooden.
Yeah.
And Keith Hernandez says this regularly on Mets broadcasts. Gary Carter's the reason they win in '86.
Carter
That
was-
addition. So
yeah, he was just that good.
mm.
Now, my final one will be a little bit of surprise, but will put a smile on Dan's face because
Okay.
it's a Yankee, but it's not Yogi Berra.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't take
Ellie-
Yogi Berra.
No, Elston Howard.
Okay.
Okay. Ellie Howard had some of the hardest times being a catcher going through the decades that he played in. Obviously, we're talking about the color barrier, and I'm not going to go too much into it. But Ellie Howard was a catcher who wasn't the top of his game in defense, wasn't the top of his game in offense, but he was reliable and consistent. And when Yogi Berra was not in, they could almost guarantee it was like Yogi Berra still behind the plate. That's how good Elston Howard was and should be recognized more for his contributions to those Yankee teams.
Okay.
Yeah, we forget how much of a dynamic player he is. Sort of like an afterthought. Even though the Yankees they retired his number, he's honored in
Yeah.
Newton Park and everything. But after a certain point, it's a little bit of an afterthought. Elston Howard, so I like that pick, Mark.
A little surprised neither one of you went Jorge Posada.
My
Or-
reasons for not
I love
look,
George. I love Georgie.
my reasons for not going Jorge Posada, because it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
Was the pint on the helmet?
Yeah.
No, it was-
I love Georgie.
It's how he called pitches used to drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Because back then they used to wear the whiteout on the fingers, so you could see what the calls were if you watched close enough.
He had some tough relationships with some of the pitchers out there.
Yeah.
No, most notable is Randy Johnson, Hall of Famer Randy Johnson. He had a tough time. He had a tough time with him.
Randy's time in New York was a weird one.
Yeah, he wasn't. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't.
It was not what you expected.
No.
Almost seemed like he didn't fit there, even though he played
Yeah.
well. It just didn't seem like he belonged as a Yankee, and I don't mean that as a diss to Randy Johnson in any way.
Yeah. But I mean, but you're right. Like it didn't. At the time when we got him, it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but the more he pitched there, the more it was like, this is super weird.
Mm. All right, for my last pick, I'm going to take Joe Mauer,
Hitter out of Minnesota.
number
Definite
one
offensive
pick, lived
juggernaut.
up to the hype.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best hitters of his generation. Shout out to who? My generation. So there you have it. I'll put the poll out on social media probably tonight, and then next week we'll go over it again. Pick whatever position we want. So, just to recap, Mark went Mike Piazza, Buster Posey, Elston Howard. Dan went Pudge Rodriguez, Yogi Berra, and Gary Carter. And I took Johnny Bench, Yadi Molina, and Joe Mauer.
How much you want to bet Mike gets it? That's a good catch.
Look,
Fun list.
I like Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer was almost like a Piazza, could do it both with the glove and the bat.
Hit for average. So he was such a good contact hitter.
Yes, he put the ball in play.
He
Move
really
runners
did.
around.
All right.
A utility guy too, Joe Mauer.
Yeah, he became first baseman at the
I was
end.
about to say he transferred to first base towards the end of his career.
Yeah. I probably injury related, but remember early in his career they couldn't do because they had more no too. So
Another player for another time.
oh. All right, on to some series for the week. We got a good interleague battle in Detroit. The Giants go to Detroit in a rematch of the 2014 World Series. Yeah, I think it's 2014 Giants. No, 2012. No, 2012 was the Rangers. It's either 10 or 12. 14 was the Royals. I apologize. But the Giants go to Detroit, Mark.
The Giants come into a Detroit team that, again, is just starting to make waves again. They had a little bit of a slump, and it wasn't a horrible one that made them fall off by a lot. But Torkelson is back red hot again. He's homered 3 times in the last week. You got each player. The pitching is getting better. This Detroit team, I would not sleep on. I take Detroit this weekend.
All right. Dan, the Dodgers go to Cleveland to play the Guardians.
I'm trying to think. The Dodgers are going to be fine in that series. Yet banged up. And that's always been the story with these LA Dodgers, right? Just in the thick of the season, just when you think they're on a roll, they get a lot of injuries. So let's see. I think they'll be fine. Cleveland though can be a pain in the neck, you know. If it, but yeah, I'll take the Dodgers. Dodgers will be fine.
And in a battle of two teams in the wild card race, kind of disappointing to start. The Blue Jays go to Texas to play the Rangers. Someone call up Rougned Odor and Jose Bautista so they can rematch it up.
We can build a little ring around them.
Yeah.
That was one of the better fights I ever watched in a
They got to do a charity boxing match, those two.
Bautista got his bell rung.
Oh, he didn't want none.
Do you do it in Dallas or do you do it in Toronto? You know.
Oh, you go to Dallas.
Yeah, for a fight, probably Texas.
Okay.
All right. Mark, you talked about the Phillies earlier. They got a series this week against the Atlanta Braves.
This is going to be a very, very interesting series, and you got to watch it closely. We've already talked about both teams, so I don't have to go into it deeply. But with Atlanta now on the upswing. Philadelphia can't take them as lightly as they did when they were injury gone. I mean, Philadelphia now has to play them like they were playing opening day roster. This could be a wake up call for the Phillies, as I think the Phillies will win the series, but Braves will take at least a game.
And then, last but not least, your Yankees go to Anaheim to play the Angels.
So the Yankees are in the middle of a road trip right now. Not loving the short trips home and then back out west. Not loving that. Let's see what they do against the Rockies. Hopefully they win the series, hopefully. And then you're coming into an Angels team that's playing good ball. So don't underestimate the Anaheim Angels. And for the Yankees, just continue. I mean, they had an absolute massacre yesterday against the Rockies. They got a really bad, crummy Colorado team. They need the bats are good. The hitting's there. Keep the hitting up, and then allow your starting pitching to, get big outs.
All right. So those are some series to look forward to this week. Cherry on top will be this weekend when Dan's Yankees go to Chavez Ravine to play the Dodgers.
And then
That should be.
I want to kick their ass.
Hopefully, Aaron Judge doesn't hurt his toe again.
Bang himself in a wall. Like, no, thank you.
Oh. They should have made the imprint like a Wile E. Coyote ending.
All right. That'll do for this edition of the Batter Up podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Mill and Mark. Anything on the dugout?
The dugout, Charlotte was just posted a huge, well, not a huge list, a big list of cards that are headed out to Top Notch Sports Club. A lot of grading, including that John Cena, which we can't wait to see come back at 10.
Oh, snap. You can see the GOAT.
Can't see me. Can't see me.
Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out the YouTube page. Like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on socials, Facebook, the Sports Insanity Network, Twitter, Insanity Real, and go to the website, thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. They blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Danny Boy, for the old ops guy, by the way, early happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm Mike, and everyone remember, not only has this been the Batter Up podcast, but let's go Knicks today.
Yeah, baby.
It's a
I'm
must
there.
win. Must win.
It is a must win. Yes.
Yeah.
But
And
I
for
do know
anybody
I do know the person who to blame if they lose this series. It is all the fault of Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, okay. Now, this is a must win. If you want to check out a good recap of game 1 and 2, Dan and I did a recap of game 1 and 2 with our thoughts moving forward. Dan and I will be live after games 3 and 4 to recap the next 2.
All right.
Otherwise, everybody go enjoy your Sunday. It's beautiful out.
Have a great Memorial Day.
Bye-bye.